Hines.
How are you?
Bethesda Softworks. Nice to see you again, sir.
Nice to see you as well.
You were here for...
That's my guy. I made that
No,
guy.
right?
Yeah.
We put it in the shot, and then it was too heavy to bring here, so we just took a photograph instead. Wolfenstein: The New Order. Playable on the show floor?
Absolutely.
You guys have a big old queue.
Very long one, but it's worth it.
Give us the pitch for folks who've not seen much of Wolfenstein.
Hopefully everybody knows Wolfenstein. It basically invented first-person shooters as a thing. This is a game that is sort of sticks with the canon of Wolfenstein, but it's being made by some guys called Machine Games. A large group of whom used to be at a different developer and made games like Chronicles of Riddick and The Darkness, and are known for taking action and combining in things like story and character and trying to have it be a bit more than just a one-note thing. And they really were interested in taking Wolfenstein and saying, look, we want to kind of do a reboot, like not starting over from the beginning, but pushing it forward and doing something else with it and adding a lot to it. Like, BJ doesn't mean anything to anybody. He's just the guy holding the gun that you're pulling the trigger on. So we want to explore, like, what is he like, and they really like this alternate universe idea of you start the game in World War II. BJ goes into a coma, takes some shrapnel in the head, goes into a coma. 14 years later, he wakes up to find the Nazis won the war and rule the world.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
It's a nightmare. And so it's really you and him and going through this sort of man out of time story where you're figuring out what would the world be like in the 1960s if the Nazis ruled everything, and he's got to find the resistance and start to fight back, because that's all he knows. It's one of those things where you sort of at first blush he's just like a big-headed guy who likes to shoot Nazis, but actually his whole thing is like he just wants to go home. He just wants to go home and live a normal life, and the only way to do that is to kill all the Nazis. And so it's like that's kind of what he does, and he's very good at it, but ultimately he just wants, a wife and kids and a white picket fence. And so I think it's a really well done thing. I think hopefully you guys have seen some of the trailers. We just put one out last week.
Yeah, whose idea was it to have a referee shooting soccer? Was it actually your idea? Nice work.
I mean, look, 14 years of Bethesda, I finally got soccer into one of our trailers. Yeah, but we like the idea of playing with the alternate reality. And look, Nazis are probably the most easily hateable. You don't need any context. Like, what's their motivation? Why don't I like them? Like, oh, Nazis, got it. Bullet, head, let's go.
Have you guys seen the most recent trailer? The one with the soccer ref getting blasted? No? You guys gotta watch
you're missing out.
It's pretty dark.
It's running in the booth. Come by and see it in the booth.
Because it has one of my favorite things about this game, and it's the villains. Like, you say Nazis, you don't need a reason to hate them, but you guys are really going out of your way to give us a lot of specific people to hate because they are crazy and creepy.
Yep.
And this dude, General Death said in the demo, like, he moves a little like Gollum, and he has this like skeletal, like, I literally turned around and like started.
Yeah,
like, yelled.
he's creepy looking and
not cool.
He's got some great line from the trailer I love, like General Death's head. I don't like it. I'm a happy man. Like, and he basically is just performing awful human experiments. So yeah, I mean, it goes back to the question before about machine games and what are they trying to do. Like, it's about story and character for them. Like, yes, you could just make it about generic Nazis, but it's a lot more fun when you get to know some of them and appreciate, like, you hate them on a whole different level. Yeah. You don't want them to die, you want them to die badly.
That's a weird kind of, it's like interesting because Wolf 3D, no one was playing for the story, or like even Return to Castle, like any one of these games, they were blaster shooter games. And like how do you guys try and have like interesting characters that way, don't lean on the story too much, but also have this like ridiculous gun warfare? Because the last half of that trailer basically was just like, yo, look at all these ridiculous guns.
Yeah, like dual wielding, automatic shotguns and like these crazy Nazi weapons that you get your hands on where you can like melt 4 dudes at once. Yeah, it's that balance where they wanted to sort of push the idea of the shooter mechanic and make it fun. And by the way, it's not just a shooter, so they've layered in all this stuff where you can play it as a more stealthy game, and the game plays differently. Like, you can run into a room, guns blazing, and take everybody out, but you can also move through and find secret passages and get behind the enemy and take out the commander so he can't call in reinforcements. There's a whole perk system to the game, so doing stuff like this where you're
stabbing Nazis' heads.
Stabbing Nazis in the head, but you start to unlock special abilities. The more you do this, then you learn new ways to do stealth takedowns, where instead of having to sneak up on them, you can throw a knife from a distance and take down a guy down the hallway instead of trying to make him. And there's different ones for that, for whether you want to be more like demolition, like explosion focused, or how you use your gun. So it does allow some variety. It's not just a one-note linear thing. And I think, again, the character and story stuff just adds to that. The guys that you're fighting alongside, the guys that you're shooting. It all fits together to make a really cool experience. You can see here some of the deformable terrain stuff where you're blasting away with this thing.
Is that your euphemism for a dude getting his head blown to bits?
Deformable terrain.
I was referring to the column, but the head is part of the deformed terrain. But yeah, setting it in an environment where you feel sort of powerful and cool and kicking ass. Kicking ass is still fun.
I'm going to throw it out to the audience for a second for some questions. I want to ask one more in the meantime, though.
Yeah.
So this is single player only.
Single player.
There is an association with first-person shooters, and especially games that have any sort of like history with its software of multiplayer. Like, how are you guys trying to, get over perceptions from audience?
I think for a lot of other publishers that would probably be a trickier question to answer, but Bethesda stands defiantly in support of single player stuff. Fallout 3, Skyrim, Dishonored, Evil Within, Wolfenstein. We believe if multiplayer fits and it's part of what you're trying to create, you should absolutely do it. But if it's not, for God's sake, leave it out. Stop shoehorning multiplayer into stuff that has no business being there. And ultimately, Machine Games knows single player, and this is the kind of game they wanted to create, and so we just never really had a conversation about multiplayer. It's like, all right, if that's not what you're making, then let's just make this the best thing we can, and that's what we're doing. And I think there's plenty of folks who still enjoy and appreciate, a nice, good, robust. Last of Us had multiplayer. I never played it once, but that's the best money I spent last year, just playing that single player experience. And so I think this can be a game in that vein.
Cool. Got any questions out there? Can we maybe get over this side? We got the middle last time. Yeah, you're going to make you run. Dudes at the back.
I see them. I see the hands. Wave them furiously.
Can we get a microphone?
Do we have the mic?
Oh, stand up there. Oh, this was standing microphone. Oh, yeah. You just do that.
A well-oiled machine.
Haven't you been to PAX before?
There wasn't a standing microphone earlier. These big lights are in my face.
There totally was.
I don't know. We got one out there? All right, cool.
Potato mash 'em.
First question, do it.
What we got?
Kind of looks like a potato masher.
Is this using its own game engine, or is there a shared game engine with any Bethesda or?
It's using a modified version of idTech 5, so they took the existing idTech stuff and did a whole bunch of stuff to it because they wanted to do more things with some dynamic lighting and Nazi texturing and things that idTech didn't support.
Is this getting released in Germany?
It is, but in Germany, they have a thing about Nazis there. They're a little touchy. Don't know if you know. And so they're called the regime in Wolfenstein in Germany. And it's actually, I'm pretty sure this is the first Wolfenstein game that'll ever be released in Germany, but it's completely stripped of all the constitutionally banned content.
I thought Return to Castle Wolfenstein was released.
It might have been.
They said it was like a germ warfare game. It wasn't.
Or something, yeah. But yeah, no, it'll be released there. But it's about a random made-up group of bad guys.
The baddies.
Yeah.
They know what it really is, though.
Who just happen to be Aryan featured and
and have German accents.
This is gross. What is going on here?
Go for it.
Gross. All right, question.
That's Death's Head.
Being that it's a single-player only game, what are some of the things that you're going to have us keep coming back for, besides maybe the multiple skill trees or the weapons or the difficulty?
Sure, it's a good question. Replayability obviously is an important thing. Extending what you're getting for your money is something we're very well aware of. There's a couple of different things we're doing. One is a mode we're not actually talking about yet, although I am lobbying for us to talk about it soon, but there's a collectible aspect in the game, and once you play any particular chapter, you can go back and replay it if you want to find the collectibles you missed. But if you find all the collectibles, you unlock this cool new mode, and when I actually convince everybody to start talking about it, you'll be like, that is super cool, and I want to find all the collectibles just to try that mode, because it's not just hey, the game got harder. You played it earlier on the Uber mode, and it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty. Difficulty is not a thing we need more of at this point. We wanted to do something different.
But it was good. Like I started on the 4th of 5 difficulty levels, and I felt like I was moving along, like, all right, you know, I have to use cover here, but I felt comfortable, but I didn't want to feel comfortable, so I kicked it up, and then I died a lot.
You got your ass handed to you.
Yeah, it was a lot of dying. But that was, you know, especially this scene when you know, this stabbing happens and it's wonderful, but then, like, there's so many other guys there that you have to try to stab.
This is the point where BJ is waking up from his coma, and the Nazis are basically killing everybody in the asylum where he's been kept and taken care of. And he's right now, he's basically fighting his way through and trying to get back to Anya, who is the woman who's been taking care of him.
Anya!
And it's not easy.
Do this section as stealthily as you can when you play the game, because once it gets loud.
Or just do that.
There's so many of them.
You're really murdering the crap out of
to
those
the face
Nazis.
is also highly effective.
Yeah, that's disgusting. If there's any more questions, line on up to the microphone there, folks.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, do it. You can just jump and say your question again.
All right, 1, 2, 3. No.
Nailed
I said
it.
this would like fit into the canon with Wolfenstein, but like I can kind of see that this is going for a more futuristic styling, where the last Wolfenstein game kind of like went crazy with like the whole like mystical stuff. Are you kind of disowning that Activision one?
Yeah. So, so the question, if you didn't hear it, was basically the last one did more of this mysticism thing.
Yeah.
This one is more focused on tech. We sort of went like this with the mysticism stuff and just said, look, like the reason the Nazis won the war is because they have this amazing technology, and that technology is super advanced and allowed them to win the war in ways they couldn't have otherwise. So there's no like moving between planes of existence or stuff. It's a more grounded, realistic thing. It's grittier. Like this is, for me, like I look at this as like the Dark Knight reboot of Wolfenstein, where it's like it's a little grittier. It's trying to be a little bit more grounded, and I think that's a part of it, an important part of it. And as you go along, you start to figure out about the technology. That becomes an important part for the resistance. Like, where'd they get this stuff? Can I have some too? Because I would love to use it against them. That kind of thing.
All right, thanks.
Awesome, great question. Just in the meantime, it's ended 0-0. That's 0-all to any UK people in the Arsenal game. So replay, fun. Go for it.
I just want to know how hard was it to like take a character like BJ Blazkowicz, who's like, he pretty much has no emotions in the first couple of games, in all of them actually.
He's got that little face. He goes, "Urgh," when he gets hit.
How hard is it to like humanize a character like that, where everybody's just like, I'm a guy, I go around and I murder everybody, and that's my job because it's my job.
It's a very good question. Actually, I wish we had it. It's not in the B-roll, but we said GameSpot might have it up. I think at one point we did a little side-by-side comparison of old BJ and new BJ.
A graphics comparison?
Yeah, where it's like the 16 pixel, you know, it's like, just in case you've forgotten BJ, his head is about this big, and this is what he looked like, and this is how he looks in next gen. As far as the personality, that's a tricky line to walk, because whenever you start to characterize the person you're playing, it might not be the way you envisioned yourself. Like, we're starting to put more context to it, as opposed to letting you fill it in yourself. Like, it's an important thing we do with Skyrim, for example. Like, you don't have a voice. Like, you are whoever you want to be. We're not saying stuff on your behalf. But in Wolfenstein, I think Jens and his team at Machine Games, Tommy and some of the other guys, in writing the dialogue and so forth, had a very specific balance they were trying to fit, where it's one of those things I really think you have to play the game to appreciate, because I think you can see some of this stuff out of context. Like, he's not averse to one-liners, like goofy 80s movie action one-liners, but he has this interesting thing, like, where he never uses contractions. Like, he speaks in sort of military talk very effectively, and then you also hear some of his inner monologue stuff where he's thinking stuff that just doesn't sound like something that he would necessarily say, but like,
He's just like, I fucking hate Nazis.
Yeah, but that's how people are. Like, that's like sometimes, you know, what you say outside is things like, I just fucking hate Nazis, but what he's thinking inside is so much deeper and more poetic than that. And we know that's inside of you.
You're giving Danny a lot of credit here, Pete.
You're right, that's actually all that's in here. And
the depth of my Nazi hate, we don't even have time for it.
As you play the game, you kind of start to appreciate a little bit, like where he's coming from and what his motivation is and how he thinks about stuff, but then he still has his funny little one-liners like, I'm coming for you, you fucking Nazi spaceman. And like, you know, it's funny when he says it like that, and then it's funny when you hear the internal stuff. Like, I think he hits a good tone. It's really hard to do that stuff and hit 100% of your audience. Somebody's gonna have an issue with something, but I personally, like, I love it. Like, every time I play the game, he still makes me laugh. I find his dialogue stuff really funny still, so hopefully you guys will enjoy it as well.
This is one of those games that if I get a chance to play it, it's like, you know, a bunch of people sitting around with headsets on, and I'm like cackling or like talking shit to the enemies or whatnot, and I feel like I'm the only one making a lot of noise in that just a silent room, and you guys are watching and just like, I'm just like crazy outbursts.
We're recording it because we go back and watch those later.
It was actually you who said, I fucking hate you, you Nazi space, Nazi fuck.
I can't write that kind of poetry, man. I mean, if I did.
Awesome. Sorry, we don't have any time for any more questions. We got to get the next group on. Actually, could you be super quick? I feel bad for you. What?
No worries. So what I was thinking, you're talking about a switch towards story-based games, and I think even that, among the shooter audience, people can appreciate that. The level would be here. Are we going to be able to rub our faces up against walls looking for secret corridors?
Definitely lots of secret corridors. There's actually one in the B-roll a little while ago with Death's Heads photos, but yeah, secret passages and finding nooks and crannies and stuff is all. These guys are huge Wolf fans. This was a franchise that made them want to make games. So if you're a Wolf fan, you will find lots of little homages and Easter eggs in here. To
just rub your face up against the wall.
Well, yeah, you probably don't have to smear yourself all the way down the wall.
No, it's slightly more sophisticated than that now.
Last question, are there portraits of Hitler in every room?
There are not portraits of Hitler.
Is there one? How many portraits of Hitler are in your Wolfenstein?
Let me get back to you on.
Okay.
You guys haven't really talked about the big H guy. Been coy about it. I like it.
Yeah.
H-Dog. We don't talk about H-Dog no more.
DLC.
Pete Hines, Bethesda, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Round of applause for Mr. Pete Hines. Let's get you jokers up here.
Pop that off.
All right.